Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ. And today, I just want to wish to all Asians who are celebrating the Lunar New Year. I know Lunar New Year lasts for 15 days, but there is something that I did some research on, and it's in regards to the Lunar New Year calendar that the Chinese are using today. So there's some facts about there's some fun facts about the lunar New Year calendar because it does have its origins in Catholicism. Now, how is it so? So there's this Jesuit missionary by the name of Father von Adam Bell. I think Adam Shell von Bell. Sorry, that's his actual name. So Father Adam, he was born in 1591 in the city of Cologne, which is located in Germany. However, we don't really have much about his childhood. We don't really know much about his childhood. We don't really know much about his youth. But all we know is that he joined the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, on 20th October 1611. So during his time as a novitiate, he studied theology, philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy under the direction of his mentor Father Christoph Greinberger. Now, fun fact about Father Christoph Greinberger, his name was used later on to name an old impact crater in the southern part of the moon because Father Christoph Greinberger is an Austrian astronomer, and he succeeded his tutor, another very famous astronomer by the name of Father Christopher Clavius. And so, yeah, these guys were astronomers. So, Father Adam, he was sent to do missionary work in China in 1618. And then he this is where he lived throughout during the time. It was the Qing dynasty, and it was the Ming dynasty first, then the Qing dynasty. So he built a church in 1650, which in Chinese is Xitang, and it was later renamed as Nantang. So if you know about this church, for those who live in China or maybe have heard of this church, the church Nantang that we know of today is known as the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, which is located in Beijing, the capital city of China. And it is the oldest, and I would say that it's considered to be one of the most beautiful churches in China. If you have been to the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, because I've never traveled to Beijing, so but I've seen the photos. It's beautiful, and it's built by this Jesuit missionary. So in ancient China, right? Let's take us all the way back to the time of ancient China. So establishing an annual calendar in ancient China was one of the most important and immemorial affairs of the state. So they were entrusted to the astronomers that form the board of mathematics, which consists of 200 members and is divided into several sections, and is usually presided over high-ranking government officials. So they will be the one to oversee what is going on uh, in there, so they make sure that they got it correctly. But of course, it's not without any mistakes. It's not without any errors. But we'll get to that part later on. And so, what is the job? What is the focus of these astronomers? So these astronomers, they are required to announce in advance the year's astronomical conditions. So the dates of the new and full moons. That also includes the sun's movement and the days it entered each of the 28 constellations of the Chinese zodiac. because you hear things like year of the horse, because this year is the year of the horse. So there's year of the dragon, year of the pig, year of the dog, year of the snake. So the Chinese zodiac animals. So the times of the solstice and equinoxes and the start of each season, the positions and conjunctions of the planets, and above all, both lunar and solar eclipses. So that is their purpose. That is their scope of the Chinese astronomers. Now, during the Ming Dynasty, specifically in the Ming Dynasty, because that's where they were utilizing this calendar known as the Datong calendar. So this calendar succeeded the Shoushi calendar, and the changes made was adjusting the time of sunrise from that observed in Beijing to that observed in Nanjing. So this calendar, the Datong calendar, it omitted methods such as the variable length of the tropical year and other minor configurations. Now there is a problem with this calendar, the Datong calendar. So the Datong calendar contained astronomical inaccuracies and mathematical errors because it failed to accurately predict lunar and solar eclipses, unlike the Western methods. Because the Western methods, they accurately got it correct because they have all these calculations that considered to be accurate and was quite precise. And it also lacks spherical trigonometry and precise calculations that the West possessed. Because the West, they were one step ahead over the Chinese, and so for the Chinese, they were lagging behind. They were lagging behind all these because they didn't have access to all this Western methods. They didn't have access to all these astronomical models. And so this actually prompted the Ming government to initiate a calendar reform. So then the Ming government appointed a Catholic astronomer by the name of Paul Siu, who is a servant of God. So he's one step before being a venerable. So that's like the very starting for the path to sainthood. So his Chinese name is Xu Guangji, and in 1629 he was ordered by the emperor to establish a calendar bureau, which in Chinese is Li Zhu, consisting of 100 people. So this 100 people consists of members such as the Jesuit missionaries, like Father Johann Schreck, Father Giacomo Rowe, and Father Johann Adam Schell von Bell. Yeah, his name is pretty long, but I'll just call him Father Adam because it's easy to pronounce. But yeah, and so 5 years later, it took them 5 years. The work was completed. They managed to fix what was problematic in the Chinese calendar, Datong calendar. Now, just before I talked about the rest of the stuff here, it actually took a while for these Jesuit missionaries to actually convince the Chinese that they got their calculations wrong, and there were a lot of imprecise information in there, a lot of discrepancies. And so because the Chinese, they weren't very familiar with how the West do its how the West calculate this and calculate that, the astronomical model. They didn't have access to this. And so that's where the Jesuit missionaries came in and said that, hey, we're gonna show you how this is more precise, this is more accurate, and you guys gotta try this. You gotta use this. And so the work was completed 5 years later. That was in 1634. Yeah, that's right. It was around there. So because if you go back to the previous 1629, so 4 years is about 1634. So the work was completed, and it was titled Treatise of the Zhongzhen Calendar. So in Chinese, it's the Zhongzhen Li Shu. So this calendar, it incorporated Tycho Brahe's cosmological model. Is another famous astronomer, and his geometric calculation methods. And this fixed the errors that were found in the Datong calendar. But however, this work was not officially promulgated until 1644. So what happened? So then it marked the end of the Ming Empire, because now the Qing dynasty, here comes the Qing dynasty. So when the Qing dynasty, at the time, when the Qing dynasty began, Father Adam uh, Schall von Bell, Father Johann Adam Schall von Bell, he served the new emperor Shizu, and he revised and condensed the work, renaming it as Treatise on the New Western Calendar, and in Chinese is 西洋新法历书, and presented it to the emperor. So afterwards, he was appointed as the director of the astronomy and ordered the use of the Western method to compile the civil calendar for the coming year. So he says that, okay, from now onwards, we shall make use of the Western model to accurately predict the solar eclipses, the lunar eclipses, and all these dates and inaccuracies that were found from the previous calendar, which is the Datong calendar. So this later on, it was later called the Shixian calendar, which all Chinese are using it till today, the Shixian calendar, because it accurately predicts the lunar solar eclipses. It accurately predicts when will the sun rise and when the moon will drop and all this. And so, yeah, the traditional Chinese calendar that's used today to determine the Lunar New Year is from the Qing Dynasty, and it's thanks to this guy, Father Johann Adam Schall von Bell. It's thanks to this Jesuit missionary that fixed the problems that were found in the previous Chinese calendars. Because again, because they didn't have any access, or at the same time, they also didn't know about what the West had, and they got into a lot of errors. They had a lot of flaws and a lot of discrepancies here and there. And so when the Jesuit missionaries came in and said that, hey, you got all of this wrong. We have a precise measurement. We have an accurate prediction of when the sun will rise and etc. and all this astronomical models that the Chinese didn't have any access to. So thank you so much for watching, and to all those Asians out there celebrating the Lunar New Year, I will say this in Chinese, 恭喜发财, and I will, and of course, it's also the season of Lent. Don't forget, and I hope that you have a blessed day ahead, and God bless each and every one of you.